Today is July 30th, 2014, and we are here interviewing Donald Parker at the Adams County Courthouse. Donald is 95 years old, having been born on May 30th, 1919. My name is Jennifer Fisher, and I'll be the interviewer. So we'll start off today, Donald, with why don't you tell us a little bit about where and when you were born, your parents, those kind of things.
Bowen, Illinois.
You were born in Bowen.
Walter and Edna Curtis Parker.
Okay. What did they do?
They were farmers.
They were farmers.
She was a school teacher. And then my dad always farmed all of his life.
You were saying earlier that you were a farmer. Is this the same farm that you eventually farmed?
Well, yes, I own. The farm has been in the family 155 years.
Wow.
So
that's wonderful.
The 80 acres of it has.
Okay.
And just a portion.
So you're still in the same area that you grew up in?
Right.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes. Our mother died when my twin sister and I were born. And she bled to death. And then my twin sister pulled a tooth when she was 6 and bled to death from that.
Oh my goodness.
She was in the hospital in Kilgog at the time.
Oh my goodness. So you were then an only child?
Yes. And then Dad remarried later on, and I have a half-sister.
Oh, wow.
Helen Daggett. She lives here in Quincy.
Okay. Did your father serve in the military?
No.
No. So you went to school in Bowen?
Yes, in Chalai, actually, where I went to grade school.
Okay.
High school in Bowen.
High school in Bowen. Did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
And did you start a job right after graduation, or were you enlisted right after graduation? Or drafted, excuse me.
I worked as an electrician's assistant for a while.
Okay. And you were drafted?
Yes.
In what year was that?
In 41.
1940. Now, when you were drafted, were you able to choose your branch of military, or did
No.
they?
I was told where to go.
And they sent you where?
That's where I went.
To what branch?
Infantry.
Okay. Army infantry?
Army infantry.
Okay. So you were 18, 19?
Hmm?
How old were you at that time?
22.
22. And so they sent you to basic training?
Yes. But after I had fired on the rifle range, they found out I could type, so they put me in the office.
Okay.
And I really never had any basic training.
Okay, so you became a clerk.
A clerk.
Okay.
And was held back. That was in Georgia. And was held back as part of the permanent cadre. After the group that I had been housed with moved out, the next day the colonel came in. All new cadre men will leave at once. So that's when I was shipped to Florida and joined the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red one.
Okay. So where did you go from there?
Well, we went back to Georgia and then to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, which was a shipping point.
Okay.
Where we went overseas.
So you were shipped from Pennsylvania overseas?
Yes.
Tell me about that. What was it like being on the ship?
Well, it was quite an experience. The Queen Mary had been built while I was in high school, and I had made a model of her. Well, I had vowed that I was going to cross on the Queen Mary before I got married. And we crossed on the Queen Mary, her first trip as a troop carrier. There was an entire division plus 2,000 additional personnel and the crew on that ship, something like 18,000 people.
Oh my. So you had thought about this years before you took this journey. That's amazing.
It kind of helped sailing off into the wild blue yonder
Yeah.
before we went past the Statue of Liberty.
Uh-huh. So what was it like on the ship?
Well, it was crowded. That many on one ship is too many.
Mm-hmm.
But she zigzagged across the Atlantic. She's too big to land anywhere. In England at that time, it was not safe because of German submarines. And we landed at Gurrock, Scotland.
How long did it take?
Hmm?
How long did it take?
5 days.
5 days. Okay.
She was supposed to be faster than any German sub. So, relatively speaking, she was pretty safe.
Okay.
And then from there we went down to a little town in southern England. Can't think where it was. It was near Andover. And we were just 15 miles from the Stonehenge. And we would walk to the Stonehenge early in the morning, have lunch out there on the rocks, and walk back that night. Made a 30-mile hike with full field pack and weapon.
What an experience.
We did that twice a week while we were there.
Wow. So when you were there, was this a combat situation at that time?
No. Of course, England was under attack at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and we would hear bombs and so forth, but no, it was relatively quiet.
So what were your duties at that time?
Just training, just
Whatever they needed.
whatever they had to do.
Okay. Okay. So how long were you there?
Oh, August, September. From there we went to Scotland, just outside of Glasgow.
Okay.
We had a lot of freedom there, but it rained most of the time and was very muddy in camp. But we were allowed to go into town every night.
Okay.
And really enjoyed that part of it.
That sounds nice. So you enjoyed that time. I'm sure that you met a lot of friends while you were there.
Yes. And
How
a lot
was-
of natives.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Was it difficult to stay in touch with your family, with your father and your stepmother?
Well, I wrote often.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. And I wrote to other people often. And they're the only ones that saved the letters. Were the other people. So I do have some of the letters that I wrote.
To your friends and
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you actually then in Scotland?
Oh, perhaps a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Then we boarded ships, rendezvoused in the Canary Islands,
Oh, wow.
and then went through the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean and landed near Arzu in Africa in November of 42.
And then what was the mission there?
To take out the resistance that we had there, get rid of the French and German
Okay.
people, the soldiers there.
Okay, so you were then stationed there for a while.
Well, we'll hardly call it station. We were there for a little while. When I was going, the ship anchored out in the Mediterranean, and we had to take a small boat and landing craft attack into the shore. Well, the captain of the company handed me a walkie-talkie radio, and he said, I want you to help me keep the company together. And I said, how do you operate it? And he said, my God, Parker, you haven't had any basic training, have you? And we're going into combat today. Well, he said, if you want to talk, push the button. If you want to listen, release the button. So I landed with the radio, hand grenades, rifle, 3 days rations, and it was a quiet landing, no opposition to the landing, and we started off headed west out of from the landing spot, and first thing the captain went on ahead, and we followed, and one of our men fell in a dry well in a vineyard. The well was probably about 6 feet deep, or about 12 feet deep, and about 6 feet across, and he couldn't get out. So what do? I told some fella to go get a rope and help him out. We'd have to go on. Well, then I realized I had no authority for that, except for the fact I was carrying a radio. They listened to me.
So they listened to you and helped him out.
And I finally caught up with the company commander, and he was giving us directions as to what he wanted. And all of a sudden he stood up and was shot through the neck and killed. He hardly, in the very early part of the combat area.
That was the first casualty that you...
Yes. And I don't remember what happened the rest of the day. I don't know. My mind just simply blocks out a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I remember about it was about midnight, and another fellow and I were sitting on stones in a cemetery, eating or sharing a can of corned beef and cabbage, and it was just every bit as bad as it sounded. But he had lost all his rations during the day, and so I shared mine.
So you witnessed this and you don't remember the rest of the day until that night. So that was the beginning of this combat.
You're right.
When you were, did you see a lot of death during this time?
Yes.
So you were not prepared without your basic training.
That's right.
But you must have done just fine.
Well, you just play it day by day.
So how long did that period last for you in Africa?
3 days there. And then we had a period of relaxation for a little while. And then we started moving across the continent.
When you had those periods of relaxation, what did you do? What was your recreation during that time? What did you do?
Well, read mostly
Read books?
what
Okay.
was available, whatever was available.
Okay.
And no, we'd go into town. Oran was the town that we were nearest. And then we started across the continent, but we were far ahead of our transportation. So we would walk 30 miles a day for 2 days. Then the third day we would ride 60 miles. And that got us all at the same place at the same time eventually. Well, we had several days of that we would walk 60 miles and then ride 60 miles.
So you were traveling across Africa?
Right, across northern Africa.
Okay. And what was your next destination?
Well, it was at the Long Stop Hill. We went into combat. The idea was to relieve a British organization that was in position on Long Stop Hill. This was the night before Christmas Eve. We were an over-strength company, and we went into combat there, and there were 14 of us came off the hill the next morning. The rest of them had been captured or were killed or wounded. And the next night, Christmas Eve, we were attached to a B company, and there were 7 of us that came back that time. And I lost a lot of friends there. I think that has been probably affected my life more than most anything else because of the, just friends don't last, they get wiped out. And it wasn't an easy time. We had quite a bit of combat in Africa. And then we were introduced to George Patton. And we were supposed to have rest after the African campaign that ended in May 15, I believe. In May, and Patton had been assigned the job of making the invasion in Sicily. And they told him that he couldn't have the 1st Division. And he said, well, without them sons of bitches, I won't go. So he got his way. He gave the first 3 graders, or the officers in the first 3 graders, a lecture. And he said that where we are going, we will be making another landing, and I want you to kill everything that moves, every man, woman, child, anything that is self-propelled, kill it. Well, that didn't suit a lot of our men very well. And that was only our introduction to Pat. We made the initial invasion in Sicily, D-Day HR. We went in at Gela, we were up in some mountains and of course I was on the observation part of it. I was communications chief by that time in the company, and I had an outpost high in the mountains, and I could look down with binoculars, could look down on the town of Gila, and we could tell something was going on. Well, then, about 6 months later, somebody got a Life magazine, or one of the big picture magazines, and it showed Patton going in, making the initial landing with his troops. That was 3 days late. We had a pretty rough time getting across Sicily. And one day, one of our friend of mine, Sergeant Suba, staff sergeant, was alongside me. We were standing at a rock, shaving. We were given 1 quart of water, or 1 canteen full of water per day, and we had to shave with that. Well, the only way we could shave was have something to hold water for the soap, and we'd have to split our helmet. Well, I had just finished shaving and put my helmet back together and put it on, but Sergeant Suba hadn't. Here came Patton around the corner of the rock. "What's your name?" And Suba says, "Sergeant Suba." "Make that Private Suba," just like that. Now that was our entry.
Wow.
It didn't improve our opinion of Patton.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, it was one of our men that he slapped in the hospital. Said he was there for shell shock. And Patton told him there's nothing wrong with him. Get out there and act like a man. He slapped him while he was in the hospital. It wasn't long after that Patton was transferred to a different organization, and that was the end of our contact with Patton.
Mm-hmm.
We did not have much respect for him. I don't know whether it was for Patton's safety that he was transferred, or whether it was for our safety, but anyhow, we didn't.
So it sounds like you were in a very stressful situation with a stressful.
Yes, very stressful.
And so he left. And then what happened?
Well, we got to Mount Etna,
Mm-hmm.
and the war ended at that time.
So where were you when the war ended?
Where was I?
Yeah, what was that day like for you?
Well, we hardly knew the difference. I really don't. When the war ended in Africa, I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
But in Sicily, why, it just kind of wound down. There were several parts, different groups going in Sicily. So we were not as compact a group as what we had been in Africa. I don't know, the day that the combat ended in Sicily, company commander bought a keg of wine. Well, it was a real sweet muscatel. Tasted terrible. And he said, "Here, Parker, I want you to dispense this tonight." He says, "I've got to get some money out of it somehow." And so I sold a canteen cup full for 25, the equivalent of 25 cents. And that was quite a bit of wine. And the next morning, I couldn't get out of bed. And company commander came in. He was just laughing. He said, I thought you said you didn't drink much. And he looked at me. My God, Parker, you look like a dandelion. And I had hepatitis. They flew me back to Africa. It was something that I had eaten or drank that carried hepatitis A. I was in the hospital 2 months there.
Oh, wow.
And the first 2 weeks, they put me on a strict diet of peanut butter and hard candy. No bread, no crackers. Peanut butter and hard candy. That's all I had for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks.
And after we got home, got married, my wife couldn't understand why I didn't like peanut butter.
I've never heard of that kind of a
I have never heard of it.
medical diet.
Since.
Yeah.
No, it was the strangest thing. But anyhow, I survived.
And you were in the hospital in Africa for 2 months with hepatitis A.
Yes. And then my outfit had asked that I come back. Most of them, they just let them go whenever but they had requested that I come back to the outfit. And so they sent me back to Sicily. We went to Palermo, Sicily, and I was stationed with the 45th Indian Division from Oklahoma, that area. A nice bunch of fellows. And while there, one of the fellows said, I would like to go to see the catacombs out of the edge of town. And would you like to go? Well, I said, how do we go? Walk? No, I thought we'd rent a horse and carriage and go out. I said, well, I haven't been paid for almost 3 months. And I said, I don't have any money left. And he said, well, I'll take care of the horse and carriage. So we went out to the catacombs, which was a totally new experience. And this was under what had been a church, but the part of the catacombs had been damaged, but there were still a lot of mummies left there for us to see. It's quite an interesting place. We're coming up out of this, of the catacombs, quite a stairway, and this monk, there were monks that were in charge of it. And he walked me into the wall trying to get me to give him some money. Well, I had so little, I finally gave him a few centimes, and he let me walk then after that. Going back to camp in the horse and buggy, we stopped at a farmhouse that served meals, and I had some of the best spaghetti I've ever eaten there, and some of the local cheeses. And I was able to get enough money together to pay for the 2 meals there, but the rest of it was free. Well, finally, I got a ship going to, my outfit had moved to England while I was in the hospital. And so that's why I was attached to the 45th. Well, there was finally caught a ship that was going to England. And we spent almost a month getting back to England. And on Thanksgiving Day, I got back with my old outfit.
In England.
In England. We were at Piddlehead, England then. my wife has always questioned that name, Pillion. And later on, when we were over there, we rented a car and toured England and Scotland and Wales for 2 weeks, and then we had a week in London.
Who'd you do that with?
My wife, as years later,
Oh, okay.
40 years after that.
So you went back and
Went back
saw all the places that they'd seen me. Where'd you meet your wife?
Oh, we were in high school.
Okay. And she was in the military as well?
Yes, yes, she was in the South Pacific.
Was it difficult to maintain contact during that time for the two of you?
Well, we didn't try too
Oh, you
much. We
didn't.
exchanged maybe a few letters, not too many.
I would just think it would be difficult to know where someone is
Yeah.
to get that mail.
Well, back in the States, when I joined the 1st Infantry Division, I had a address. My address was Company A, 18th Infantry, APO1, and that's the only address I ever had while I was in service after basic.
Oh, wow. So they would find you.
Yes.
Okay. So I just find it very interesting that your wife was also in the military and then you guys met up after the war.
Yeah.
So how long then were you in England when you met back up with your outfit?
We were there until D-Day in Normandy, on June 6th.
Okay.
And during that time it was a very pleasant time. I enjoyed England. In fact, during that period, I had a full week in London, and I enjoyed theatrical productions so much more than I did movies. And I was able to get in 6 or 8 shows in 7 days.
Oh, wow. Wonderful.
Have matinees, and several of them I have seen since in this country, like Arsenic and Old Lace, and My Sister Eileen, and different ones I've seen in this country.
It sounds like those are good memories.
Yes. Went to some Shakespearean plays too.
That's wonderful. When did you leave? When did you leave and come home?
Would have been the first day of April in 45. We were in Germany, and we lost so many men and get replacements so often. And we had just gotten a bunch of replacements, and we were in this farmhouse in Germany, in the basement. The company commander came in, said, "Get your things together. We were going home for 45 days R&R." And I said, "Well, we've got new men to train." And well, he says, "You're going home anyhow." So it was when I left then. And the war ended while I was at home.
So they sent you back to the United States for rest, and the war ended. And what were your feelings during that time? Because you were expecting to go back.
I expected to go back, yes, but when I got back to Chicago to go back, they asked if I wanted to discharge or if I wanted to go back to Germany. Well, I had a battlefield commission waiting for me, and apparently that hadn't caught up with me because that would have meant I had to stay in another year. And I didn't want that, and I didn't even mention that. So I decided to get out.
So then you were discharged at that time. And you came back to Bowen and farming.
Mhm.
And what was your life like for you, following the war and the memories of...
Nightmares, terrible nightmares.
Is that something that made it difficult to readjust to your life?
Yes, very.
Did you have support from your family?
Well, I didn't talk about them.
Did you have anybody in the community that you could talk to about?
No.
No fellow military person?
There were so few people in combat during the war. I think they said it took 17 people behind the lines to keep one person in combat. Well, there just weren't very many people that I ever knew that were in combat. No.
So I'm sure that felt very isolating for you. Did you join any military organizations where you could get support that way?
The American Legion, and yes, there was only one man that in the group that had ever been in combat. I mean, it's that unusual.
Mm-hmm. Were you awarded any medals for your service?
Yes, a Silver Star and 2 Bronze Stars and Purple Heart. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other decorations that you give
Mm-hmm.
being in combat.
How has your military experience shaped your life? How has it affected your life?
I think it's made difficult to get close to people. I really think it has. I found out that people just didn't last. So many of my friends. I had one particular friend, his name was Barone. I don't know why or how we ever got together, but I was just like a country bumpkin, and he was from Bryn Mawr, the elite part of Philadelphia, and he was a college graduate. I was a high school graduate. He summered in Bahamas, and I summered in the hayfields and cornfields in Illinois. But we became good friends, and he was captured in Longstop when we were in Africa. And then our outfit, the 1st Infantry Division, has always had a reunion every year. And I have gone to a few of those. And one time he came, and we got together again, and we kept in touch. And as long as he lived, he died some time ago.
You've been able to talk to your family about this more in the last few years?
No, not too much. They've been wanting me to write it down, and I have much more detail than what we have here. And I haven't given it to them yet, but I plan to.
Is there anything that you would like to add today that we haven't gone over?
Or when we were in the hedgerows in France, in the hedgerow country, one of my brothers, he was a friend of mine, and he was a good soldier. Came to me and said, "Sergeant Parker, I've got something I want to talk to you about, but I want you to promise never to tell anybody until after it happens." Well, I said, "What is it?" I no need had some problems with some social diseases and so forth, and I didn't want to something like that. You have to report. And finally, he said, "Well, I know you won't. I know you won't tell anybody." He says, "I want you to go see my mother when you get back." And I said, "Well, what makes you think that I'll get back and you won't?" Well, I saw what's going to happen. He says, I just know it will. So 2 or 3 times after that, he asked if I still had his mother's address. And I said, yes, I did have. And he checked on it from time to time. And one morning we were going into an attack, and we were in touch by radio, and he called me, said today's the day. And about 10 o'clock, I was in touch with him, and his phone went dead. And that was the end of. He had been standing in a church entryway, in an arched entryway, and a shell landed just above his head and killed him almost instantly. And so when I got home, I did go see his mother, and I broke down while I was there, kind of disappointed in me. So later on, I went back, and there's somebody else answered the door then. Well, yes, said that she had sold us the house, but she had to stay there because it was a soldier boy that was going to come see her. And as soon as he came, she would move. Well, he came, and she moved out, and we don't have any address for her. So I didn't see her but the one time. But I did go see her.
That's amazing. I want to thank you for sharing your story with us today. Did you bring any photos that you would like to share?
No, we don't have any photos. Really, we don't have. There were some pictures that I had taken while I was in London to send home, and I don't know where they are, but my wife couldn't find any pictures of either one of us to mount to anything.
Were you two discharged around the same time?
No, I was discharged in July. of 45, and she was not discharged until December of 45. She was in the South Pacific where I went the other direction.
But you came home and reconnected and
Yeah.
farmed and raised your children?
4 of them.
4 children? What message would you like to leave for future generations that could hear or view this interview?
Hang on to America, don't sell it all.
Thank you. Were you captured while you were overseas?
Well, not really. I was captured on Lone Stop Hill at Christmas Eve, but I hid behind a rock. I've been killed if I've ever been found, but I got by with it. And that was what the whole group was captured then, but I didn't go with them.
You were able to leave
To
the group and
avoid.
hide? And then you were on your own?
Yeah.
What did you do during that time?
Well, I joined back where the company was supposed to be, and of course the company was wiped out. And at that time I was a private, and they rebuilt a company then from different ones. We got a company commander by the name of Captain McGregor, and we were sitting around one morning, and he said, well, we've got all these Christmas packages now. Why don't you open them? Why don't you just go ahead and open and take whatever you want? Well, I started to open one. I decided that wasn't the right thing to do, so I didn't open them. He says, Parker, do you want to become my communication sergeant? Well, I said, I don't know. I don't know the duties or anything. I said, you'll have to guide me. Well, he'd do that. But we became good friends after that. Then we were real good friends with him. And we had good working relationships with all of our company commanders.
That's good.
Some of them have even come west. There was an eastern outfit, and some of them have even come to visit us in our home.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful.
I kind of skipped over Normandy, D-Day.
Did you want to tell us about D-Day, Normandy?
It was a terrible day. Had to walk on dead soldiers. I will never forget that. And then we had to climb a cliff. It was pretty rough going to get up the cliff with all the weight we were carrying. And one fellow stepped off the beaten path in climbing up the hillside, and he touched off an anti-personnel bomb, and it knocked him down. I don't know how many men he took down below him that was climbing up the hill, but he didn't make it. And we lost a good many men.
Is the anniversary of that something that, how do you recognize that every year?
I think about it. was a bad experience.
Thank you. Thank you very much.